Good night again, everybody. Um, I'm going to be talking about scraping stuff. Uh, I haven't done any like more tutorial style presentations. I figured this might be a fun way to try it using some code we used for something before. So, quick overview of the agenda. First, I'll just like briefly introduce scraping on a whole. Then I'll talk a bit about what type of dynamic content I'm referring to. Then we'll look at three different, I guess, ways of scraping stuff like that. And then lastly, I'll do a tutorial type run through of some code for scraping live stream video on Twitch. So web scraping, or the process of web scraping is basically automatically extracting information from websites. And it's pretty well known that it's a good way of curating your own data sets, especially when it comes to more niche or specific sites. Like when you're dealing with the major platforms like YouTube, Reddit, Twitter, there's already APIs and third-party libraries that make your life really easy. But when it comes to those niche or specific sites, you're kind of on your own and need to figure it out on your own. And then it's pretty straightforward for scraping static content, like just your news and blogs, that type of stuff. But when you need dynamic content, it gets a little bit more difficult, which is what I'll be focusing on tonight. So by dynamic content, I guess I really mean asynchronous content. So that's anything that comes after the page has already initially loaded. So when you send that first request to the server and you load in that page, everything after that can happen, like on feeds when you have those kind of like infinite lists. When you scroll, that's when it loads more, or like clicking stuff to trigger new content that comes in but doesn't necessarily go to a new URL. That type of dynamic content, like video, for example, a lot of, even if it's entire videos that you're streaming, most web stream, web live video players, they stream it in chunks, so it asynchronously loads as you watch. And so the first way or method, I guess, is kind of the most popular way that most people probably already know. That's where you send a URL request to the website you want to scrape. You then collect that HTML response and you use some parser like Beautiful Soup to go through it and get the information that you want. So this is great because it's straightforward, it's simple, and what you see is what you get, kind of the deal, which makes it a lot easier to use. The issue is sometimes the content you want isn't that straightforward. Like I said, the scroll to load feeds, or for example, on Flipboard, I think Flipboard, they have these tabs with news. And when you click on technology, because the site is a web app, when you click on technology, new information or new articles would come up, but the URL doesn't change. So that's an example of in-session user behavior that would affect the type of asynchronous content you're viewing and would like to scrape. So when it comes to that type of user behavior, one method to get around it and still scrape stuff is by using automated browsers like Selenium. And this allows you to script those user actions, like clicking on stuff or scrolling around with your code, and automatically run it like normal. It's often used for testing front-end web dev stuff, which makes sense considering how much more complicated front-end frameworks have gotten in recent years, with all the like asynchronous Java behavior you have to deal with, JavaScript behavior. So I would understand why a lot of people would want automated test scripts for that type of front-end behavior they need to cater for. We can also happen to use it for scraping stuff as well. The issue here, though, is it can be kind of bloated because it's not like Selenium made their own browser for this. It's just their software that runs on top of the web drivers of the usual browsers like Chrome and Firefox and stuff like that. So you're running an entire browser, which makes it kind of bloated. And you usually want your scraping to be kind of like light and quick. which is my other point, it could be kind of slow because in simulating user behavior, you're limited by the speed of that user behavior. So you're not just automatically grabbing everything. You're kind of just waiting for certain actions and stuff to happen. Like if you need to wait out ads on a video or something like that, or close, like you have that 5 seconds thing until you can skip the ad. That type of user behavior could slow down your process. So the third way kind of gets around that as well, sort of. It goes back to what the first way was like, which is a URL or request, and then passing data of the request. So despite the fancy name, this is just trying to understand the underlying API that the site is using. Because if it's getting that asynchronous data, it has to get it from somewhere, and it has to send a request to somewhere. So you're basically just trying to understand what requests are happening in your browser at the time of using it, and what API they're using, what information that API expects, and what information it returns. Because then once you understand the interactions at that level, you can script it. It could get tricky, especially when it comes to dealing with authentication and maintaining JWTs and that kind of stuff. So in that case, maybe you'll be having you're biting off a lot. But even if you're able to figure out a good script to interact with that API and get the information you want, it's still not going to be incredibly fast, because they're not going to just let you bombard the API with requests. There'll be limits in place on the rates that you can send, and in some cases they might detect bot-like behavior and block your IP temporarily, or they might I think YouTube does this. They put a captcha before you can continue, and I mean you could I guess you could try using Selenium to get past those reCAPTCHAs. Like if you use Selenium to trigger the captcha itself, and then maybe use, depending on the captcha you're faced with, you could try using YOLO for object detection, or I think Google Assistant has a fairly easy to use API for speech recognition that might work. I mean, that would probably go against terms and conditions, which isn't something I would do, but you do you. Just saying, there's always stuff that's going to be limiting what it is you're trying to scrape. So now I'll do, I guess, a quick tutorial. It won't be too long. The reason I chose live stream video to scrape is because it's one of the methods that Shiva, Rajiv, and I used for some of the stuff we're working on. So since it's something I know was used for something useful, I thought it would be cool to show. And the method, I guess, or stuff I used to do it was Selenium. Let me just make it lighter. Yeah. So Selenium was the main thing we used, but we also had to use this thing called browser mob. Imports, okay. Yeah, because this is the risk I took of trying to do a live demo. Stuff could go wrong, but I think I'm fairly comfortable with you guys as a group, which is why I took the risk of stuff going wrong. Yeah, so we used Selenium and browser mob because with Selenium, I should probably explain what we're trying to scrape first. Yeah. So first I'll find a good stream for us to try to scrape the video of. See someone who's live. Minecraft is safe, I guess. Yeah, so as the stream is going on, if we open the DevTools and we go to the network tab and then XHR, which is XML HTTP requests, you can see these requests that are constantly coming through here. And like this one, for instance, oh, what did I do? Oh, yeah. This one here, for instance, is a transport stream file. And that's basically an MPEG file. So I could download this and it'll be a chunk of the stream video. So these are what we want to get. We want to get all of these and put them into a single file. So let's copy this guy's URL. So this first piece of code here is going to start our proxy server, which we're using because Selenium, when it comes to scraping network activity, like what I just showed you, can be kind of inconsistent sometimes. Like, so some sites you won't need browser mob, but in the case of Twitch, it's safer to use it. And what browser mob is, it's a proxy server that will sit in between our Selenium automated browser and our connection to Twitch. So everything that comes from Twitch is going to run through our proxy server, which allows browser mob to capture all of our network activity. So this first piece here is starting our proxy server. Then here we're setting our options for Selenium. So window size and telling it, this is the proxy server we're using. You can also set it to be headless, which means it will run as a background process instead of opening a browser, which makes it easier to use in the cloud as an automated script. And then here we're telling Selenium that it's okay that we don't have valid SSL certificates when we're opening this website, which we won't because we're using a proxy server between it. So we're just telling it, that's fine. Ignore any warnings or stuff like that that Chrome would want to show us. Here we're adding a tag just to make it easier to trace the network activity we want afterwards. And this is just starting Selenium. So once we do that, this next chunk is gonna pass through our network logs and look for those chunks of video that I just showed you, those .ts files, the transport stream files. And once it finds any requests that used or involve those files, it'll send another request to the URL it came from, grab the response, and then add it to our output video response. It'll be raw binary, so that's the AB here. We're appending to the same file because it's going to come in order, right? So we could just add it to the same file and it'll be fine. It's kind of double work here because we're finding requests that went to those chunks, and then we're sending another request. The responses will be there in the logs as well. It's just the encoding is a bit odd, so it kind of corrupts the file, and I'm not too sure why. Probably fix it, but yeah, I didn't want to, I guess. Yeah, so first run this. It should open open the stream to the guy, and let's let it run for a little bit. Not too long because don't want it to take forever. I'll close it quickly. Also run this here to quit the server because I don't want that running in the background. And now we could run through and grab the chunks. So these are the .ts URLs to the video pieces that we want to get. So not too long. Now if we go to the folder here, this is our piece of video. Yeah. So, and yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So from here, you can see I kind of did a manual step there, but from here you could kind of automate the rest. This is an example of Selenium actions you can automate, which I didn't need to use for here, but we needed to use it for the actual site we're using this for, because this code, we didn't use the script for Twitch. I just chose to scrape Twitch because the code would be simpler versus what we actually did, because the site we scraped had a lot of other workarounds like ads and stuff like that. So for demonstration purposes, this was simpler, but this is what that type of Selenium action could look like. Identifying an element by its HTML tag and then clicking or scrolling or whatever. So then once you have that type of, this would be like the main piece, but from here you could start to, monitor the time of things, have 60-minute videos so you don't end up with a huge file, reset the proxy session so you don't end up with a huge proxy log file, stuff like that would kind of just flesh out the rest of the entire process. But the main piece is here, going through, finding the requests that we talked about and grabbing the video itself. And yeah, that's about it for me. Short one this time. Thanks for listening. Are there any questions?
Yeah, thanks for that, Reshawn. Very interesting stuff. Actually, I'm teaching big data analytics And so we covered scraping last week, and I came across Selenium, etc. So it's nice to see it in action. I mean, I just kind of talk about them, the various tools, but what would be good is maybe I don't know if Shiva, if you have some tutorial time sometimes, maybe you could ask Reshawn to just give this presentation during the tutorial.
That sounds nice. Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, I don't mind. That sounds fun.
Yeah, yeah, because you prepared all this and they be useful for the course.
Actually,
I don't have the time to go through in this detail each application. So
Adidev messaged me and asked if the presentation was going to be recorded. So
who is that?
Adidev, he messaged a while ago.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. So but yeah, you can work with Reshawn on that. All right. But thanks Reshawn. Nice.
Thanks.
Hey, Reshawn, can you hear me?
Hi, yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, another timely presentation. So this is only, you can only get the live data, you can only get the data as it's going live, right? From the video?
Yeah, so that's kind of the reason why Selenium is an okay choice. Like one of the disadvantages I mentioned about Selenium was the fact that it's slow, but we're already naturally limited by what we're trying to scrape. It would also work for full videos. So like Twitch has VODs of previous streams and they are streamed in a similar way with the transport stream file. So it'll work there as well.
Okay, only with Twitch, or can we use it on Facebook, YouTube?
It kind of depends site by site. This whole .ts way is common. Like most sites stream in this way, but there are exceptions. Like YouTube, for instance, it's kind of weird. They send audio and video separately, if I can remember correctly. So it's different. So it's still possible to scrape those, but it'll be a lot more work. Like Netflix, for example, there'll be a lot more work to scrape versus this.
Okay, final question.
Scraping.
When people are streaming or chatting on Twitch is public, right? So
Yeah.
if you scrape, it's okay that you have what's coming from the video.
Oh yeah. I checked Twitch's terms and conditions before this. They tell their creators that it's not within their control to prevent people from like copying their content as it's streamed.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions?
Okay, I guess that's about it. So thanks, Reshawn, for the wonderful presentation.
No problem. Thanks for listening.
Okay.